Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing good today. And this is the Morning Devo with Beau. It is June 3rd. And we're going to get into a super interesting passage in Genesis chapter 34 today on my devotions. So these are my devotions, things that I like to do in a day, and that is to get up and go through the Bible and just read through it. A lot of people don't, and that's kind of normal. A lot of people don't read the Bible. I never did either growing up, and then when I finally read it, I was kind of blown away by it, and man, did it just floor me. How different the Bible was than I thought it was going to be. I had a lot of presuppositions going into the Bible. And so anyway, it's been a blast to read over and go over. And chapter 34 is a continuation of the life of Jacob. And as you know, the theme of the Bible is God and a child that would be born. And those are the two big themes. That's kind of what the drive is. And so we're kind of waiting for this promised child. And we're going to see if it is in one of Jacob's kids. Because we knew it wasn't going to be in Jacob, because Jacob wasn't all that great of a guy. I mean, he was okay, but really messy. But he did have a lot of children with 4 women. And so this is the beginnings of what you guys might know as the 12 tribes of Israel. And so here we go. We see Jacob arriving in the town of Shechem in the last chapter. And he's in the land of Canaan, and he sets up camp. And then he buys a part of the land from, it says, the family of Hamor, the father of Shechem. And so Jacob is set in the land of Canaan. It says one day Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and Leah went to visit some of the young women who lived in the area. Doesn't sound like too big of a deal. And it says, and when the local prince Shechem's son of Hamor, the Hivite, saw Dinah, he seized her and raped her. And then he fell in love with her, and he tried to win her affection with tender words. He said this to his father, Hamor, "Get me this young girl. I want to marry her." Oh, man. This is a rough section. Well, we see that not everybody, is kind of able to control their obsessions. I think it was C.S. Lewis that said a human being with an obsession has very little sales resistance. Meaning if you really like that car, it's going to be really hard for you to say no. no matter what the price is, you'll probably end up kicking it out because you just want it so bad. Sometimes, our passions do trump our logic, meaning even though we know it's not good to do that, like maybe this guy, Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, maybe he should have, thought about, asking her out on a date or something. Now, you might be of the person who has read that book, I Kiss Dating Goodbye, or something like that, or you don't believe in dating. But I tell you what, there's worse things than dating, that's for sure. And it's definitely spelled out in this chapter. I mean, look at this. He sees Dinah. And what is she doing? She's going to visit some of the young women who lived in the area. And what happens to her? This man finds her, this young man sees her and decides to go for it. He decides to overcome her. Rape. It's not depicted as a good thing. And I know that seems like it would be, yeah, of course it's not depicted as a good thing. But there are people that don't care if they put their power over you. And that. There are people in this world that tend to kind of have this mentality of just survival of the fittest. And if I'm more powerful than you, then I'm going to win. And that's kind of how it goes. You just aren't as powerful. And so you can't do nothing about it. And it's kind of like you're out to luck. You're out of luck, or something like that. And sometimes it's easy to, when we read a passage like this, go, man, I'm thankful I'm not like that. But on a lesser scale, this is a pretty extreme example, let's face it. But in a lesser scale, a lot of times we use our power to conquer. We kind of learn it as kids, or I learned it in junior high. I learned it in elementary school, where if you could overpower people, you could beat them up, you could humiliate them, because you were more powerful, you were more stronger. And unfortunately, I was a part of that kind of behavior as a kid. I knew it was the wrong thing to do. For some reason in my brain, I knew something, you shouldn't be doing this, but I did it anyway. Whatever the reasons were. And, you tend to use whatever power you have to get over. Sometimes it's physical power. Sometimes it's intellectual power. Meaning sometimes you're trying to abuse people by your words. This can happen to a person who maybe was bullied when they were young. And then they kind of, they don't fight. They're not fighters. They've never fought. They've never been in those kind of violent situations physically. But instead, what they do is they end up learning things, and they use knowledge as a weapon to go at people. And that's not good either, right? That person who's just constantly going, trying to be the intellectual one, to be the smart one. So sometimes there's different ways that people will utilize kind of their power to get over on you. Well, Shechem's son used his physical power, and he got over on Dinah, raped her. And then he says he fell in love with her. Ugh. And it's an interesting fell in love with her. What does that mean? What did it look like back then? You could see a lot of problems with that, right? Is this really love? Or are we talking about lust here? Because you obviously didn't care for her so much that you raped her. So that's not loving, is it? No, of course not. And it says, he said to his father, get me this girl. Isn't that sad? Get me. Get me. The possessiveness. Like my wife is mine. Sometimes we have this idea in our mind, and it's one of possession. My house, my this, my car, my this, my wife, my kids, me, my. And that possessiveness tweaks us as human beings, where we really start thinking a person is mine. And how that works in our sick brains is we start thinking we can do whatever we want to do with this person. That we can treat them however we want to treat them. And because they're mine, and we have that possessiveness. Us human beings don't do well with this. If we can take advantage, a lot of times we will take advantage. It can be financial power. We keep people at bay. We don't want people to become wealthy or as wealthy as us. So we find ways to keep them down. I mean, this power thing goes in a lot of different areas of our world. And it's not good. This kind of wanting to hurt someone. So even though I might say, hey, I've never raped anybody, but have I used power over people? Have I volitionally used some form of power to get over on someone? And then it brings me to God, right? And goes, hey, God, help me. Help me not think this way. Help me not think of power. Help me not look at society as, it's me over people or people over me or these kind of things. This is what has gotten us in so much problems in our world. We try to remedy it, but we can't. Communism, socialism, everybody living as equal, we think that's going to work, but it's not going to work either because something's wrong with the human condition. No matter what we do, playing sports, it doesn't matter what it is, money, emotions, we're always going to try to get over on people. And man, so it's really sad that this is a revealer of the human condition. It says, soon Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah. But just think of what a parent must feel like, right? Oh, some of us do know. But since his sons were out in the fields herding his livestock, he said nothing until they returned. Hamor, Shechem's father, came to discuss this matter with Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons had come in from the field as soon as they heard what had happened, and they were shocked and furious that their sister had been raped. Shechem had done a disgraceful thing against Jacob's family, something that should never be done. So even way back then, it was a no. Don't do it. Don't go this way. It says, Hamor tried to speak with Jacob and his sons. My son Shechem is truly in love with your daughter, he said. Please let him marry her. In fact, let's arrange other marriages too. You give us your daughters for our sons, and we will give you our daughters for your sons. And you may live among us, and the land is open to you. Settle here and trade with us, and feel free to live, buy property in this area. Now, this could have been a quick fix, right? Hey, we'll intermingle the Hivites and those of Jacob. He's trying to fix the situation. Obviously, it's not going too well. It's a huge conflict. I mean, let's face it, the whole family, the honor of the family has been quite a blow has been made. And sometimes we don't realize that when we're abusing someone and getting over on somebody, that we don't realize that we dishonor not only them, but we dishonor their family, right? Their parents, those kind of things. Like it's not just with that one person, that we're dealing with. But, how many people just don't think that way? How many college kids, just don't think that way? They're not thinking like, I'm hurting not only this person, but I'm hurting this person's family as well. Mom, dad, brothers, sisters. Sometimes when passion is ruling the day, all we think about is that thing that's in front of us, the obsession that we are fixated on, and we will want it at the expense of anybody's feelings or emotions. I want financial success. Well, you can get it, and you can get it at the expense of thousands and millions of lives, but it won't matter to you. Even though you might think you're a humanitarian, you don't realize that, or you do realize, but you really choose to ignore that, our decisions matter and it affects other people. That's why, growing up, more progressive, we were, quote, concerned about, proper wages. We were concerned about the workers' environments, things of that nature. Are people getting over on people? The problem is that we too were probably getting over on people as well. And again, it's a human issue. It's a human condition. We all see the problem, but we just can't seem to fix it. And then Shechem himself spoke to Dinah's father and brothers. Please be kind to me and let me marry her. He begged. I will give you whatever you ask, no matter what dowry or gift you demand. I will gladly pay it. Just give me the girl as a wife. Hey, man, I'm going to give you all the money in the world. I'll give you whatever, millions of dollars. I mean, would I take that kind of payment? Would I take that? Oh, yeah, you want to fix the situation? Hey, this remedies the situation. Dinah's with you. It's okay. It's now, you guys are getting married and, and I get wealthy even more off of this. You could see there's a lot of temptation, perhaps, with Jacob and his family to take this dowry, to go this direction. It says, but since Shechem had defiled their sister, Dinah, Jacob's sons responded deceitfully to Shechem and his father Hamor. They said to them, we couldn't possibly allow this because you're not circumcised. It would be a disgrace for our sister to marry a man like you. But here is a solution. If every man among you will be circumcised like we are, then we will give you our daughters, and we'll take your daughters for ourselves. We will live among you and become one people. If you don't agree to be circumcised, we will take her and be on our way. Hamor and his son Shechem agreed to their proposal. Shechem wasted no time in acting on this request. He wanted Jacob's daughter desperately. Man, impatience. Instead of thinking through this and going, okay, every male to be circumcised? Does this seem like a radical, like too good to be true type of proposition? Maybe he should have just took a moment and thought about this and go, this doesn't sound right. Sometimes when things sound too good to be true, they are too good to be true. Sometimes when things just, are proposed like, oh, this is the great out. This is, this is it. Maybe it's good just to wait and be patient. Maybe perhaps God's going to move you in a different direction or, it's not going to be for you. It might seem like it's for you, but it's not for you. And you really need to take the time. But Shechem is desperate, it says. He is wanting something that bad. It is such an obsession that nothing's going to get in the way of that. It's going to move in that direction. You might see a house that you want to buy, and it has everything you ever wanted in your life. It has the view, it has this, it has that. It's so nice, it's so pretty, it's so great. And if that becomes an obsession, then you will do everything to get into that home. whatever it takes. It doesn't matter how much money it is. There will be repercussions for you getting in that home. It will trickle down to your kids and to your grandkids and everything like that, because it's your decision. You wanted that house, you wanted that view, and you'll get that view here in the here and now. But man, maybe there's a better view somewhere else. Maybe God's got something better. Maybe he's got grass in a place that is even better than what you thought, what you think is so neat about where that place you want so bad is. What I'm saying is that heaven is going to be better than anything on this planet. You know, I lived, and not only me, but many people have lived in some beautiful areas. I not only grew up in Southern California, which is a beautiful place, meaning the topography, the land, but I also moved to Kauai and lived on a very small island in the Hawaiian Islands. Absolutely gorgeous. And when I lived in that area, it was very early in the 90s. And so there wasn't many people on the island, and it wasn't built up at all. It was very much a jungle island. Very cool, very beautiful, a paradise, if you will. But nothing compared to being with God, going where God has you, walking with the Lord. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. But how many of us really believe that? Or do we just, man, I want this, I want. That obsession has just moved you. Oh, we could see our failures, can't we? And it says, he wanted Jacob's daughter desperately, and Shechem was a highly respected member of his family. And he went with his father, Hamor, to present this proposal to the leaders at the town gate. And it says, these men are our friends, they said. Let's invite them here among us and trade freely. Look, the land is large enough to hold them. We can take their daughters and wives and let them marry ours. Now, I find something else fascinating in this little statement, and that is the land is large enough to hold them. It's interesting that back then they're thinking about this. The land, is it large enough to hold them? Is the land large enough to hold us? Is the land large enough to hold you? I would imagine that we live in a day and age where we have abused the land quite a bit, and that the land really can't sustain us very well. And we have to kind of manipulate things, and through technology and through running water from here all the way over there and bypass this and go that way and and all this kind of stuff. But it's very hard on the land to deal with everything that's going on with us humans. Just think of the freeways. We build these freeways, and now we got so many big diesel trucks on them that it just crushes all the concrete. I mean, even that gets wore out, because we got giant trucks now. We're not just cars, not just a billion cars, but a billion trucks. And not just trucks, but giant trucks. We are a crazy crew. And so they say, is the land large enough to hold them? We can take their daughters as their wives and let them marry ours. Verse 22 says, but they will consider staying here and becoming one people with us if all of our men are circumcised just as they are. But if we do this, all of their livestock and possessions will eventually be ours. Come, let's agree to their terms and let them settle here among us. So there's some little bit of conniving, a little bit of selfish inclination here, a little bit of, hey, yeah, we'll let them in, but, remember, we get all their stuff too. We get rich too. Business partners, it's really sometimes they're all about money, right? Money. It tends to rule it all. And so all the men in the town council agreed with Hamor and Shechem, and every male in the town was circumcised. But 3 days later, when their wounds were still sore, ouch, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi. Now we're waiting for the son of promise. Is it going to be Simeon and Levi? or one of them, of course, who were Dinah's full brothers, took their swords and entered the town without opposition. Then they slaughtered every male there, including Hamor and his son Shechem. They killed them with their swords. They took Dinah from Shechem's house and returned to their camp. Now, Dinah was at Shechem's house. Man, I wonder how that transpired. Did he take her? Did Jacob say, okay, Dinah, you can go hang out with Shechem a little bit as they're all wounded up from getting circumcised? I mean, how did this even... We don't get all the detail. But we see that her two brothers decided to take matters into their own hands, and they took their swords and they went after him when they were down and out. You know, when people are down and out, do you take your sword to them? You know, is that when you go get them even more? You know, they're hurt, they're in pain, but hey, why not just dig it even deeper? You know, why not just go even more? You know, that's how sometimes our human hearts are. We're that desperately wicked, where we will tend to take people that are vulnerable and mess them up. This happened to Dinah by Shechem. He took advantage of her, and now you see Dinah's brothers, two brothers, taking advantage of these men that were circumcised. Meanwhile, the rest of Jacob's sons arrived, finding the men slaughtered. They plundered the town because their sister had been defiled there. They seized all the flocks and herds and donkeys, everything they could lay their hands on, both inside the town and outside in the fields. They looted all the wealth and plundered their houses. They also took their little children and wives and led them away as captives. After Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have ruined me. You have made me stink among all the people of this land, among all the Canaanites and Perizzites. We are so few that they will join forces and crush us. I will be ruined and my entire household will be wiped out. But why should we let him treat our sister like a prostitute?" They reported angrily. All of Jacob's, in a sense, conniving in his early days must have kind of played back in his brain. Here I've sold my Jacobs thinking I kind of did some interesting deception to win my brother's rightful birthright. I've kind of been a conniver. And now here, God, things have really come home to roost, where I see how some of my sons have acted just on impulse in wrong ways and have really made things potentially far worse for us in the land of promise by doing this action that I'm sure had with it a lot of repercussions as far as people hearing about it. The Hivites being, wiped out, this clan being taken out, their women and children being taken, all their property being taken. And Jacob's just going, what is going on? And they're saying, and the sons are saying, man, come on, Dad. What's wrong with you? We got to get at them. Why aren't you more upset? They treated your daughter like a prostitute. Of course this is what we should do. You could see just the mess that it's in. Sometimes we act like the sons, where we're like, let's go get them. Like, why can't you see it's okay for us to do this? Why can't we take vengeance? Why can't I go at them? Why can't I verbally go at them? Why can't I verbally put them down? They put me down, so look what they did. Look what they did, so I'm going to go at them. I love that, those of us that are in Jesus are looking to Jesus. It says that when Jesus was insulted, he did not insult in return, but he committed himself to him who judges righteously, meaning Jesus committed himself to the Father. The Father's able to judge. And Jesus knew that as the Son, and he commits to his Father that judgment. Do I really believe that God can judge people that maybe are putting their power trip over me? Or do I believe that I have to take vengeance? Notice that the vengeance that's taken by the two brothers is intense. It is not just maybe an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but it's taken the whole set of teeth, so to speak. It's taken all the eyes, right? It's taken it all. This is the human condition as well, that sometimes when we, want to take vengeance on someone, we don't understand that something's working in us where we're not going for justice. We are going for punishment. And that is a difficult thing. What is just in this situation? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, this kind of idea that we'll see later on down the road in the law of Moses. But instead, that's not what we see here. We see every male being killed. Every single male being taken out of age, of course. Sounds like the children and the women were not killed. But man, everything else, they took all the possessions of the Hivites. So really radical, and I don't want to be like that either. I don't want to use my financial power or my verbal power, my intellectual power, my knowledge of the Bible to just lump people, right? Just jack people, just take them out, just put them down, take them out, no compassion at all, no care at all. And it's all really just an inner insecurity issue. It's all just an inner envy issue that's going on. And that's really what's coming out. It has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with the Bible. People do it in atheism, in different philosophies where people put their philosophy trips on other people and they use their intellectual understanding of philosophy to tear down people. To say, oh, you guys just don't know philosophy, that's your problem, and then blah, 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 and make people feel lame, make people feel stupid, make people feel inept. And yeah, because you're putting your power on, you're trying to beat them down. People do it, we do it all the time in all different ways. Class power struggles, right? Race, putting people down for their ethnicity. I mean, we see this kind of behavior over and over. And they do this angrily, the brothers, right? When they say to Jacob, hey, he treated our sister like a prostitute. They were angry. And that anger, instead of committing that anger to God and saying, God, I trust that you are angry and you can do the right thing and you will do the right thing. Instead of committing that to God, they took it into their own hands. And maybe before I take things into my own hands, I need to go to God and pray. And I got to go seek the will of God. And I need to be patient with moving forward, not being quick, to get in that meeting, to try to pull one over on someone, to try to get at someone. A really, really powerful passage. I love Michael Rodriguez brings up Stephen when Stephen was being stoned in the book of Acts, the first martyr of the church, the deacon Stephen. And he says, as he's dying, Father, forgive them, right? Father, forgive them. I mean, what a heart, instead of going at him with wrath. And Stephen could have looked at those people killing him and said a few words, could have launched a few scuds, but he doesn't. Michael also says that he drove big rigs for a living, bringing everything to the people in need of food, toilet paper, and so on. I know, it's amazing. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in those big rigs, but boy, man, it's just unbelievable how many are out there, the amount of growth in our world. And, what is sustainable? It's a good question, especially if we didn't live in today's modern technology. I mean, could we really be sustained living in here where I'm at? Probably not. I don't see much water anywhere. But yeah, what a neat chapter and a tough chapter for sure. But it's one where, again, we see human condition in its finest. And we can see a lot of our failures as human beings in it on many different levels. So bringing things to God, would have been a far better thing to do for Jacob and these brothers of Dinah, instead of just taking vengeance into their own hands. This is kind of the first we see of the conflict in the Middle East, by the way, from what we've read in Genesis. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob have been, kind of sojourners and now starting to dwell in the land. But now we see some serious conflict going on. Okay, we will talk to you guys later, okay? Bye-bye.